Hello and welcome to what I think is a very, very special programme where we're going to be talking about the revolution of football or soccer in the USA. We've got Scott, Matchmaker Michaels, we've got my friend Gordon Hill, who you're very familiar with on this channel. But what we're going to talk about is how the North American Soccer League, the Retro League, the famous league from the past which used to star Pele, George Best, Franz Beckenbauer and Gordon Hill, how it's going to be potentially brought back as the National Soccer League by Scott Michaels. Tell us, Scott, about your vision.
Well, I've been working on this project for maybe 2 or 3 years. The vision is to democratize soccer and bring America a competitive, almost fan-driven new form of soccer, which is based ultimately on the original success of the North American Soccer League. Started about 2 years ago in registering federal trademarks for some of the original teams, like the LA Aztecs, the Chicago Sting, who Gordon played for, the Washington Diplomats, the Atlanta Chiefs, and a number of others. But the idea is to connect in generational history of the game into America's future, because let's face it, over the last few years it's become lackluster. The US soccer's really struggled with the product, and it's become expensive for fans. So ultimately the vision is, let's recreate some of the history, but also build a more sustainable future in a new soccer industry.
Gordon, as we both said, you played for Chicago Sting, of course, and you're very much well connected and you're in tune with what's going on over in America. You've been over there for quite a long time now. What do you think about the prospect of bringing back Chicago Sting?
I'll be honest with you, John, I think it's a great idea. We've seen teams over in the States now that have been, the new teams have been given different names and bits and bobs, but they can't forget the history of where it all started. And the North American Soccer League was it. And people were coming out to see the Pelés, they come out to see me, they come out to see Cruyff, George Best. You're not going to get much better than that. And the idea when I went out there was to be an ambassador player to develop the game in the States and to make it a game where they loved, they could play in all these competitions, which they've done now, which is not a problem. But if you look at it in the true sense of the word Chicago Sting means a lot to people in the Chicago area, in the soccer world. You're looking at Washington Diplomats, which was in Washington. So it covered such a great expanse, but it also had the top players. And we're talking, there's no better than what was there. And they brought in players of the caliber to make that game better and develop it and hand it over to the American soccer kid. And we were doing camps and clinics, and that's one of the reasons why I went back over to help, and I do now, is develop young players. Hopefully, with what Scott's coming up with, is something that can be seen to be, we're going the right way, but now we're going to be doing it with the history attached to it.
I love the history and the retro side of it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans who are going to absolutely really adore seeing the retro kits come back if you can manage to do that. But as a fan, I know a lot of my friends who, older fans, they're starting to fall out of love with football because we've lost the entertainment factor that we used to have when you used to be playing, Gordon. How important is it to bring back entertainment in soccer?
Yeah, I think the competitive aspect of the game is hugely important. I think once you take away competition into soccer, it becomes boring, stale, lackluster. I think the vision with the NSL is looking throughout history to get supporters engaged. You've got to look at what makes soccer entertaining, and things have been tried and tested over the years with the original NASL rules. I think some of those rules were actually better. We were talking earlier about the 35-yard line and how to get people engaged. But ultimately, it's going to be down to the competitiveness of the players and being motivated to win. I've been looking at the idea of a winner takes all, so every game's got something on the line. But that's to answer your question, John. It's about competition and competitiveness, and I think the players have to be motivated to put on the product.
It's a massive undertaking, but you've already made an impact, haven't you? And you've already got fans on board. I think you've got a crowdfunding website where people have already started to put money in.
Yeah, so from day one, I want to democratise. So I want to give fans an opportunity to get involved, from coming in the league to ultimately building some clubs, that fan-owned clubs, proposals that I'm putting together. We've got I've set up a WeFunded page. We've raised millions of dollars over the last few years through regulation crowdfunding. I want to give the fans an opportunity. We've got some backers already, from Robbie Fowler to Mike Charlesworth, who's the owner of the Central Coast Mariners. He's supporting us with it, and amongst, I think, 25 now investors. But I want to bring the fans involved with this. This isn't about putting Scott Michaels first, or like had been done before with some other soccer leagues. I want to bring in everybody. So crowdfunding is a perfect platform to get everybody involved.
And how important is it to have people like Gordon being your advocates and promoting the league?
Oh, massively. I think soccer history is very important. The players, the history. We were just talking about the Chicago Sting and Willie Roy, and the way that they won the NASL championship. That's gold dust. And a lot of the stories around these original clubs, I want to get back into circulation, because it's hugely interesting, to talk about some of these legends. George Best, who's no longer with us, Johan Cruyff as well. We want to fly the flag for their legacy and tell future generations, because it's very important for generations talking to each other and telling the history of the game. So I think, with these legacy clubs and people like Gordon who've played in, that's a great story to tell.
How important, now conscious are you of having to make it really entertaining?
Yeah, it's got to be authentic. It's got to be competitive. Players have to be motivated. Where I see the real vision is finding these American talent, these heroes, and giving them the platform to play professionally. I'd like to see more mavericks in the game, some more creativity.
The game becomes negative after a while, and the negativity comes from players not being allowed to express themselves.
Yes.
And once they're not allowed to express themselves, what happens is then the coaches come up with, let's do this, and 90% of it doesn't work, because you're relying as that player. They're all individuals you're trying to put into a team, and when it doesn't work, then you're trying to think of ways of coming out of it. It becomes boring. And I'm, and I've told John this as well, I'm not, I've fallen out of, love with the game. Why? Not at the youth level. I get more enjoyment out of watching an untouched canvas. And that's what the development side of it is. That's what I'm in. And whether it be an American kid or whether it be an English kid, it doesn't matter. When I look at that untouched talent, and then all of a sudden they do things that you'd say, wow, that's good. And you give them the basics, then you're on to something else. But I think that is something that needs to be changed in the US as well. Rather than you have to do it this way, you don't. But the basics will be what you will work on, and then you'll see the talent of that individual come out.
Yeah, I think looking at the stats though, I've got data that shows that to play MLS as an American, it's 1 in a million opportunity. Mm-hmm. I want to see more Americans play professionally, because that's the way that the standard's going to get better.
Yeah, of course, I totally agree with you. And one of the points I have is, I don't want a college kid becoming a pro at 21. Because for me, 21, I want that player at 17 and 18 to be ready to be able to take, because the rest of the world and international football is the 17 and 18-year-olds now. As we've seen it in the Copa America and the Euros, We've seen that talent come out. The Euros has been boring, but you look at the Copa America, that has had a couple of good teams in that have tried their hardest. The US have had a nightmare. Canadian team seems to have overtaken it and got to the semi-finals. So all in all, the game is it's not being changed. We've got to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And it's become sometimes for me, when I see the games, I look at it and they're forgetting the object of the game is to score more times than the opposition.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So that's why strikers are worth millions and defenders aren't worth as much as. And that's where you get your values from. But you talk about a striker, I'm all in. You're talking about a defender that is a very good defender. We've had them, we've seen them. And America has got talent. There's so much talent around, but I don't think it's being given a chance.
No, the levels aren't there, are
the standard is way below. And people say to me, Gordon, we've come 5 years, and to turn around and say the rest of the world has gone 10.
Yes, yeah.
And to get these players into this system that winning, and it's the same expression. Winners will drink champagne, losers will make their own arrangements. They've got to get into that winning and winning against the top opposition, not just being fodder for these big teams. And where does it come from? It comes from the next generation of player. And the next generation player needs to play in leagues and teams that want solely that, not just the money side of it.
Yeah.
And once that achieves that,
it's sporting excellence rather than financial excellence.
Correct. It has to be.
Yes.
It has to be. You can't put you cannot put the pound sign or the dollar sign on it all the time, because if you do that, you're not going to get that player, because we're looking at football now where players are earning fortunes, which takes away that bite. We want the hunger. We need the hunger.
Yeah.
Comfort zone is like, you're happy to be there. We're looking at it now. A lot of players now look at going to Saudi Arabia. They're going across to the Far East. Why? They're going to play their football, but they're going to earn a fortune playing. So you're not going to get the best.
Yeah.
So why is the supporters watching that?
Yeah.
True football people want to see people with flair. They want to see goals. They want to see entertainment. They want all that. And that's what the US has to do. It has to stop, we're going to do this, this, and this. It's regimented.
Yeah.
I've always seen you as a visionary, Gordon. You've been in America such a long time. You know everything about American football, soccer.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what impact do you think the MLS franchise model has had on the quality and growth of American football?
I think it's cocooned itself. I really do. I think it's a league amongst themselves, and you have so many different cultures playing the game. The West Coast is very Latino. The middle is very, very half and half. You go to the East Coast and it's like the Philadelphias, and down that it's the tough. So you've got such a big country that it's very hard to say, well, okay, we're going to get one team out of it, where the country, you could get 4 or 5 teams out of this country.
Yeah.
Because it's so big. But what you've got to do is you've got to start the pyramid, so to speak, with the leagues that they play in. And it starts with the kids, then it becomes young players, then it becomes older players, then you're passing it all, and it's history and culture. And how do you develop a culture of excellence? You don't do it by quitting after 10 years and then going and creating something else. A culture of excellence is how you develop over time. And those players develop the culture of wanting to win. They develop the culture of a style of play. I can tell all styles of play from different countries by the way that they play. America hasn't got that. It's trying to search for it. And as I said, establishing the NSL would be really, really good for young players. And it's got to be led from the bottom, John. It's a pyramid from the bottom, and then you build up and up and up.
Relegation, promotion.
Relegation.
It needs an open infrastructure.
Yes.
Like we've got in England.
Yeah.
That's the only way the game thrives. I think the problem with the sports franchises, it's not just expensive for investors and stakeholders.
That's the pay-to-play system, isn't it?
It's the pay-to-play.
Yeah.
It's isolating the blue-collar demographic. There is a lack of inclusivity, and I think we need to do something. You know, in order for America to thrive, it has to be, it has to change. And what I'm proposing is we put a new infrastructure together, a new form of soccer based on the history of the game, and we'd be proactive. We don't complain.
It's like exactly what you said, Scott. You go into the game, and then you play the game, and then you finish the game, and then you become a coach and a manager. Your experience goes with you, and then basically as you grow older and the young players come through, that culture is passed down. This in America, to me, it's not passed down. There's a stoppage, and it's like, well, let's build again. Let's do this. Let's do that. There's no, well, okay, fine. Let's improve what's there and not isolate it. And that, unfortunately, to me, looks like that. The youth policy is phenomenal in the pay-to-play system has to be altered to even get the much more established and better players. And with the new league, I hope that Scott can get that to a stage where the Chicago Sting, the Minnesota Kicks, the Philadelphia Fury, all these teams that everybody still knows, let's bring them back and let people start loving them again and start watching it again. Because there's nothing better than talk about it. And we talked about it today, about saying, hey, I tell you what, the Sting. And I told you guys some stories about some of the players. And that's Chicago. You know, people have got stories, and they say, well, are you going to watch the Chicago Fire? Or is that new franchise? Well, nothing against it. It's still football, soccer, but to me, it's Chicago.
It's almost sterilised, isn't it?
Sterilised, yeah, and it's been isolated because, don't forget, the NSL finished, and then all of a sudden it became an international team only, where they played games and everybody said, I'm an international, yeah, right. And then they decided, well, let's do the MLS again. Let's rename it. Let's rename it. You can't keep going around renaming these teams. You're running out of names for these teams all the time.
I think one thing which is concerning, which I saw originally, one of my motivations to kickstart this was nearly 200 clubs have died since the formation of MLS, professional clubs. That isn't good. That shows to me it doesn't work. The industry doesn't work.
Even in any other football, it comes out that the teams in these towns have got to be surviving somehow. Whether they're supported by the local businessmen and the local community that go there, it's got to be now, okay, we're getting bigger, so the community gets a bit bigger and they support the bigger infrastructure, but that infrastructure has got a chance to be able to go into a bigger infrastructure, into another league.
Yeah.
I think with the game, it has to be relegation, promotion, and build on that so that people have all aspire to wanting to go into that division. And I think, you know, when you're competing as much as what everybody else is, well, we'll have the MLS. Is that the only thing? Or you've got the USL. Is that the only thing? The only thing that goes up is the price of buying a franchise. And I say the word franchise, which I don't like to use, because they can tug it from you.
Yeah.
And it's like you come in and, John, you buy a car, it's yours. You sell it, you sell it. in England, we've got boards. Your local communities would be able to get involved, businesses, and you get Jimmy from the electrical store that's down the road. He might be a board member, lived and eat and breathe and sleep there. And all of a sudden he wants that, but he wants to see his players being represented in a league where it is good enough for that player to progress and say, well, next stage is the national scene. Wow, that would be great to develop that player to say, tell you what, yeah, he was playing for this little town. Now look at him.
Yeah.
Now look at him, you know, and he's given the chance. And the chance would be that the money is not the factor to play in this game.
I think every town and city needs to have a team.
Yes, I totally agree.
At least one
I totally
team.
agree. One team, so that the kids in that community can get talent will rise to the surface.
Yeah,
that's what scouts are around for, to see that player that's here. Dempsey was one of them, and I know that because I recommended him to Boston. Why? Because I had the Boston team in, because number one is you had Paul Mariner, Stevie Nicol, that knew if I said there was a player that the Boston, the Revolution would be able to get a chance. Dallas didn't want to pick him. He went from there to Boston. From Boston, he got sold to Fulham for $4 million. And then English football was very, very tough, but it shows you that the stepping stones to actually go through. And if you've got a league that can do that and give these players a chance, I'm all for it. I'm all for the next generation of player.
And here we are, three Englishmen talking about how to change football in America. But it sounds like you're very much on the same, singing from the same hymn sheet. It sounds like you've really got a lot of synergy in understanding what the problems are, obviously. And it sounds to me like Scott's got the solution if he can pull it off. Are we actually, in effect, saying that football in America sucks?
It doesn't suck because I've been around it so long. I've seen its growth, and I'm all for that. I've seen it grow really nicely, but not quick enough.
Sounds like an important one, Gordon. I'll just take a break there. Welcome back. Scott, it's been very exciting hearing about your vision. Tell me, how far are we from actually seeing it take shape, and what needs to happen next?
What needs to happen is we need to get as many people involved as possible. So I've started a movement, Football is for the Fans. We've opened a Wihen funder page, which is a regulation crowdfunding page. We've raised $13,000 so far. Our idea is to get as many stakeholders, and I invite as many people as fans who want to create positive change around the game and give more opportunities for American talent. What's missing is opportunities, and I think with these original teams and flying the flag and celebrating the history of American soccer, I think we can connect the pieces. The stadiums are there, the infrastructure's there, the cities are interested in backing this, and it's just a case of connecting the dots. And I think with my experience in the game, I can make it happen. So I'm inviting as many people to join us. You can get involved from as little as $100, which is affordable for nearly everybody. And I aim to complete our first raise by the end of the year.
Sounds fantastic. And how enthused are you by the reaction you've had today from Gordon Hill, who could play a really important part in what you're trying to do?
Oh, he's a legend, and that's going to be a big part of bringing back these original clubs, is telling the stories. All this stuff that's been swept under the carpet, we want to resurface and tell people about the history of the game and how we had great players.
Scott, did I hear you say legend? Not a legend, but a legend. My left leg was not bad. The right one was just for standing on.
And Gordon, how enthused are you by what you've heard today from Scott?
It's nice to see somebody come up with maybe looking at a way to not so much like revolutionise, but to bring the game to another level, to look at the perspective of saying, yes, this is a new league, but it's also great for me because I'm a developer of young players. And for me to develop young players to play in a league where they playing for the Chicago Sting or one of the clubs that are going to come into it that have got history can only be good for the game and can only be good for the USA as a national team comes through. You know, to me, it's something that I've played here, I've played in the States, I've managed in the States, I coach in the States, I develop in the States, I live in the States, and there's so much talent. You can't get all of it. It's so big. But the beauty of it is that if a new league comes in and a league that is looking to promote that player, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And it should be a player come from any background, should be able to be given a chance.
As a fan, I've been enthused by what I've heard from both of you gentlemen. It's really brought home to me the fact that football in America needs to go to another level. With the upcoming World Cup in 2026 and the Club World Cup coming next year, a lot of people think this is the time is right for football in America, but they don't realise that there's actually quite a lot wrong in the game, even though they've done well to a certain degree, but you've got a vision to take it to the next level.
Yes, yeah. I think the problem with the US soccer is that it's run by the MLS, and you know they hold all the cards to it. To improve soccer, we need to broaden it, make it bigger, not make it about pro league standards and all these obstacles that are hindering the sport itself. I think the vision for the NSL is we're not going to put politics, we're not going to get involved in any of that. We're just going to put the game first, we're going to put the fans first, and that ultimately it's going to lead us in the right direction for the sport.
I know what the fans are going to want to know is when are we going to see any games? I know you're talking about launching it with a series of games on tour. Do you think that could happen before the World Cup in 2026?
Yeah, it's going to take considerable support. So I'd look at it as dominoes. It's knocking the first domino over. The first domino is going to get the fans involved. The best way to do that is to show support through the crowdfunding. Once we've got the support, we can go to cities, we can get city support, we can bring back support from the original NASL, the players, which is going to be really important, and rebuild the history. And I think once we take it to market, yeah, I could see us hopefully doing this in 26, couple of years, possibly, might even be 27. But in the meantime, we can be playing games. But again, it's having this fans support, which is going to be the catalyst to it.
It is fans, and as I said before, the thing that makes this game work is the players and the fans.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Without them, and I say that a lot in my development, and people try to change the rules and the game, and I just turn around and say one simple thing: without these young players, you have no game.
Yeah.
So there you are, fabulous news, a very exciting prospect of the National Soccer League coming back to bring retro football, a new style of entertaining football to America. If you like what you've heard, please let us know about it. Follow these guys. You can follow Gordon Hill on Twitter, and you can find Scott Michaels on social media, I'm sure, and follow all the content that we create about the National Soccer League, because I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more from these guys.
And also, John, you've got to remember, you can also find us on a podcast that John and I do, and we will be talking about this a lot.
Sure enough, yeah. And final word from you, Scott?
Yeah, just really excited about the future of putting it together. It's a massive undertaking, but again, with the support of people like yourselves, Gordon, you, John, as well, I think we've got something we can drive positive change.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yes, I wish you the best of luck and any help that we can be.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Don't call us.
No. We've got you on speed dial already, don't worry.
I know.
Thank you. Fantastic.
All right, brilliant.